Natsume Soseki once wrote, "Words are not meant to stir the air only. They are capable of moving greater things." And indeed, there's a duo out there doing much more than just stir the air with their interpretation of Japanese literature. Words turn into emotions, emotions turn into music, and music turns into memories. The perfect cycle. They are embracing a movement and putting it on the spotlight with a lot of poise, respect, and elegance. Please do the honors, Kamio-san and Mamiya-san.
Hi everyone, this is Shinichiro Kamio and
Takehiro Mamiya, and we're
Katari. Recently, we talked with voice actor music news and review website, the Hands That Field is HQ about Katari.
Please check our interview on their website and the special podcast feature dropping this week featuring us on their YouTube channel.
Thank you for your support.
It seems like we have a special episode in hand, doesn't it? Let's kick off this episode of Seiyu Lounge. Welcome to Seiyu Lounge, I am your host Vanessa, and today I'll be talking about Katari, duo comprised of popular seiyuu Shinichiro Kamio and DJ Takehiro Mamiya. And that's because I recently had the pleasure of interviewing both for an exclusive in-depth feature about their unique passion project. Yes, you heard it well. After years and years chasing after an opportunity for the Hand That Feeds HQ to feature interviews with seiyuu, it happened right on time for the website's 11th anniversary and the first anniversary of this podcast, Seiyu Lounge. If you could see the smile on my face right now, I'm over the moon. And that's because this is an awesome first step towards bringing more international visibility to seiyuu. This was my aim when I founded the website in 2010, and to see it happen after a lot of hard work is something that really makes me a bit emotional. At the same time, I believe that I got to ask questions that strayed away from what is usually asked by Japanese media, and that's because I am a massive geek about music production, as a former music producer myself, and fan of voice acting as a unique form of art. If you haven't read the feature, I invite you to check the link in the description. Unfortunately, this episode of Seiyu Lounge isn't a two-way conversation with Katari, which would be awesome and something that I'd love to pull off in the future. Instead, this is an episode all about Katari and why you should think about checking them out or perhaps even support them directly. Once again, thank you to Katari's Shinichiro Kamio and Takehiro Mamiya for giving me the opportunity to conduct an interview, and Katari's management for being absolutely awesome throughout. So let's get on with this episode, shall we? What is Katari? Katari is a duo comprised of seiyuu and DJ Shinichiro Kamio and Takehiro Mamiya, best known as DJ Tekina Something. As some of you may already know, Shinichiro Kamio is best known for his work in the Hypnosis Mic franchise as part of Mad Trigger Crew. He's also part of Akatsuki in the Ensemble Stars franchise and Swing Cats in the Jazz On franchise. He's also a narrator, DJ, and a magician. Takehiro Mamiya is a DJ with a touch of genius. Seriously, after listening to his music and then after the interview, I only got to confirm it. He has been doing a lot of work under his DJ name, DJ Tekina Something, composing and even singing his songs. You could say he does it all, and you will be impressed with the quality of his work. Katari's concept. Katari is all about their musical poetry concept. As far as concepts go, this is a genuinely refreshing one. Fans of literature and lo-fi music find in Katari the common denominator, the epitome of that mix. The refinement and at times decadence of the 19th century and early 20th century Japanese literature comes to life through Kamio and Mamiya's vocals. And the chill, slow-paced lo-fi hip-hop beats give a powerful heartbeat to their music, creating the soundscapes in which you'll lose yourself in. When I first came across their music, I was pretty surprised. First off, I love lo-fi hip-hop music, the chill beats, the deliberately slow and punchy bass lines, and the delicate piano accents. The contrast between light and dark. But lo-fi hip-hop as a genre has been commonly presented as instrumentals only. But for Katari, that contrast between light and dark has a voice, has a poem for you to further relate to, or at least understand and feel the story that is being told to you. For that alone, Katari is in a league of its own. Literature as a catalyst. Literature is at the core of Katari's music. Throughout my interview with the duo, Camio mentioned that he does enjoy pure literature, poetry and novels, and those have influenced the way he approaches each of Katari's songs, which are adaptations of Japanese works in Aozora Bunko, a database including poems which the copyrights have expired. And you'd be surprised with the works included in that database. There are hundreds of interesting poems by some of the most iconic Japanese poets in there. The fact that Camio is a fan of some works by Japanese authors that died young and thus didn't get to experience what growing old means ends up giving Katari's performances a certain decadent feeling that I find rather appealing. Camio made an interesting point when he said that the authors that wrote about death were doing so in a contrast to life. In a way, I'd add that those authors celebrated life by highlighting death. Of course, in literature, as with any type of art, the interpretation will be different from person to person, and that is what makes Katari such an exciting project. There won't be two people that will perceive a poem in the same way. At the same time, there won't be two people that will perceive Katari's performances in the same way. Yes, Camio and Mamiya did their interpretation of those poems, but it is just one out of the various ways you can approach those in the end. And Shinichiro Camio said that his focus passes through making literature interesting and appealing to others by blending it with music. If you are passionate about literature, it will certainly be worth checking out how Katari interpreted Osamu Dazai's No Longer Human, Akiko Yosano's Yume to Genjitsu, or even Chuya Nakahara's Yagi no Uta. The beauty of literature, of course, is fully fleshed out through the duo's lo-fi hip-hop music. Lo-fi hip-hop music. Katari is all about their hard-hitting, at times violent, bass-centric lo-fi hip-hop sound. Some of you will be asking, but what is lo-fi hip-hop music? Let me indulge you a bit. Lo-fi hip-hop music has been a trend in recent years. It's a hip-hop subgenre that has been around with a lot of strength and a cult following since 2013. However, its roots date back to the early noughties. The godfathers of lo-fi hip-hop are the late Japanese DJ and producer Nujabes and the American rapper and producer J Dilla. In a way, lo-fi hip-hop is closely associated with Japanese music, and many perceive Nujabes' work as the reason this subgenre thrives. Still, both producers developed this subgenre of hip-hop in ways that would forever influence a generation of artists that embrace the elegance of jazz, the emotional side of a good hip-hop beat, and the perfect pinch of electronica in the mix. Lo-fi hip-hop is all about emotion, not the music itself. And because of that, songs embracing this subgenre instantly come across as nostalgic. This is the type of music that, for its simplicity and emotional focus, will make you want to stop and think, relive experiences, reminisce about happenings in your life. Regardless of the artist, and even if the music has lyrics or is just instrumental, you'll feel that nostalgia. Those long, dark nights staring at the neon signs through the window of your home. You'll feel a longing for things you didn't even experience. You will feel the emotions conveyed in those lyrics as if they are your own. and those emotions only connect with you because of every carefully crafted beat, every pizzicato strings hit, every nostalgic piano melody, or the sum of all instruments in the instrumental piece serving as a backdrop. So yeah, lo-fi hip-hop music is not what you'd call mainstream. It is exactly the opposite. It has an incredible amount of depth, and if purposely used, it can be quite the powerful sound for an artist to embrace. However, at the same time that this is a niche style or subgenre if you want to get technical, lo-fi hip-hop is also pretty popular, spawning several music labels focused on this unique, emotional take on hip-hop music, not to mention YouTube channels that thrive on making lo-fi hip-hop playlists. Qatari's music. Now, if you look at Qatari and how they wanted to adapt a series of literary works into pieces of music, and most of those literary works have a bit of age, you know that lo-fi hip-hop music as the backdrop was a perfect choice. That nostalgia and longing in lo-fi hip-hop is the perfect match for those works dating the late 19th century and early 20th century. We're talking about poems written in the pre-World Wars or during the World Wars. Those are bound to reflect on life and death, parting ways with loved ones, sacrificing themselves or even dying for their country and their beliefs. Those literary works have longing, devotion, passion, and a whole lot of feelings at their core, something that, with lo-fi hip-hop music painting the background and with the respectful adaptation of those works like how Qatari is doing, gain a whole new life. Although some of those feelings may not resound with most of us right now, we can all feel those emotions as if those were our own, can't we? I know I am getting a bit abstract in here, but this is how good Qatari's concept is, and their execution is perfectly and respectfully done, something that literature fans will for sure enjoy. I asked during the interview if the duo's choice for lo-fi hip-hop had been intentional or it had just flowed naturally as Takehiro Mamiya listened to Shinichiro Kamio's interpretations of the poems he wanted to create music for. I was surprised when Mamiya said, "I kind of changed the beat or the sound based on how Kamio-san reacts, and I try really hard to change the poem's world into sound when I make the track. That's why I can't say if all the tracks are going to continue with this lo-fi hip-hop sound. Their sound flows this way because of the poems being adapted. It's certainly not intentional, it just works with the mood, feelings and emotions that the poems convey and that Qatari wants to focus on when performing. That in and of itself is something that makes their music all the more exciting. Right now they may be big on lo-fi hip-hop for their sound, but things can change if a poem deserves a specific sound, and thus a new soundscape is created for it, further expanding the possibilities for Qatari's music. As the duo's composer, Takehiro Mamiya has an interesting approach to music production and the sound that Qatari has. Approaching music as numbers, knowing the exact formulas that you have available as a composer to obtain a certain sound, are certain things, especially for experienced producers. However, the emphasis that he puts on how the music needs to have a feel, a heart, instead of just following a formula is something that shows how slight nuances in sound and tweaks in the delivery, not to mention the emotion they put in their songs, can elevate a work that was already pretty solid. I once again will say this, his impressions on music production, sound and emotion had me with the jaw dropped in awe. It's not often that you get to experience a music producer talking about music and emotions in such a deep way, yet making it sound simple. If you ever wanted to have cool, introspective lo-fi hip-hop as a backdrop for your daytime work or a late drive, Qatari has released 12-hour videos with specific songs looping throughout. There are specific literary works featured in each of those 12-hour videos, therefore, I thoroughly recommend you to check those and pick the version that has the song that clicks best with you. The double vocals. If you check Qatari's music, you'll notice that they have a double vocal formation. While Shinichiro Kamio is in charge of delivering the core of the poem, usually resorting to a firm, warm and full voice, when the time comes for what you'd call the chorus, Takehiro Mamiya joins in, and what ensues is something that I was not expecting. Once again, the imagery of light and dark comes into play, this time around as Kamio's low vocals and Mamiya's higher, at times delicate vocals are in charge of that contrasting perception of their music. At the same time, and if you pay closer attention, you'll listen to Kamio's higher vocals as he raises only slightly his singing tone to provide another layer of depth to their performances, and thus making the hook hit the listener much harder. A perfect example of that is their performance of Chuya Nakahara's Yagi no Uta. An interesting touch as well comes from the fact that Shinichiro Kamio is focusing on his skills as a narrator to deliver the performances in Qatari's songs, approaching every performance as a reading play instead of a song. Once again, if you listen to Yagi no Uta, you'll notice how Kamio deliberately starts the poem with a low, older voice, and with each verse, his voice gets younger, perfectly capturing the feeling in the poem. That's a masterful performance in my opinion. By the end of the day, the double vocals formation and Kamio's unique approach as a narrator instead of a singer are just another two ways in which I believe Qatari will hook you in. Their aspirations and chemistry. You can feel the duo's chemistry throughout the interview, and you can tell when you get to read it, or if you've already read it, that Kamio and Mamiya are both incredibly invested in this project and do so with a lot of passion. The way they discuss and decide how a song should sound, how they want to convey the feelings in the poems, or even what feelings to convey both through vocals and music, show that their unlikely encounter and thus partnership is one that was meant to be. Qatari is a hobby, and you can feel their love for it by how respectful they are about their adaptations of famous works and their presentation, sound and performance-wise. Qatari wants fans to experience the beauty of the Japanese language and Japanese literature through the rhythms they create as well as their performances. You don't need to know the Japanese language to feel the emotions in their performances. Of course, knowing the Japanese language helps to make sense of what is in the poems or the lyrics. However, as it is, Qatari does a great job at making those poems accessible to everyone through performances and music that perfectly capture what is going on in those. Qatari mentioned that this is a hobby for them, and as such they aren't looking to make a profit out of their work. Instead, they put the focus on people finding their work and enjoying it. And they show that by making their first live show, taking place in August 30th, 2021, available as a free live stream. Do check the description for a direct link to it, and if you can, make sure to show some love to the duo as they take the stage together for the very first time. How to support Qatari. Qatari is an independent, fan-powered project. Shinichiro Kamio and Takehiro Mamiya confirmed that they are just approaching this project as a hobby, and if you want to be part of their hobby and enabling them with more means to create unique music videos and curate more works, delivering those in outstanding pieces of art to listen to time and time again, they do have a Fanbox page. Fanbox is essentially a crowdfunding platform, much like Patreon or Ko-fi, in which fans can join in and choose a tier subscription based on how much financial availability they have. Although a Japanese platform, international fans can join in and be a part of, like Kamio and Mamiya said, their hobby group. Every subscription to their fan box will help the duo with production costs related to the production and management of their YouTube channel content, music and music video production, and other costs that may include live shows like the one to be held later this August and available through a free live stream. If you can't help Katari directly, you can always subscribe to their YouTube channel. Spread the word about their music and unique concept. It doesn't look like it, but all of those things help them a lot, especially in a niche project such as this one. If you haven't noticed so far, I am quite excited about Katari. This is a unique project that, even before I started thinking about contacting Katari staff for an interview, I was already a fan of. They are doing something that no other group in Japan is doing. Their unique blend of literature and lo-fi music stays with you. It gets under your skin, it will loop in your head. You'll find yourself falling in love with their performances and, hopefully, with the masterpieces that were sampled to their songs. I instantly fell in love with the high quality of their music and the somber, dark undertones of their performances. That's the type of music and performances that move me. Emotional, introspective, with depth and substance. Shinichiro Kamio shows an immense passion for literature. You can tell that from the way he approaches the works he wants to adapt, as well as how he wants to convey them. And that results in a set of performances that will make chills run down your spine. He's that good as a performer. And his narration-singing combo for Katari's songs stands out for its high quality. And then you have the lo-fi hip-hop music as the backdrop. I didn't need more than a full beat in Yagi no Uta to be drawn to their sound. That was the first song of theirs that I listened to and found myself hitting that replay button, completely addicted to their sound and performances. Lo-fi hip-hop is meant to be nostalgic, the beats to be violent and low, while appearing to be delicate, and Takehiro Mamiya perfectly captured that, making Katari's music connect with the listener in unexpected ways. Additionally, if you're a fan of literature, the fact that Katari is adapting classic poems by some of the best Japanese poets and authors and doing so in a respectful way stands out as a positive point. Katari breathes new life into those poems and makes those even more relatable and impactful than those already were. I love when music projects or even seiyuu artists dive into the darkest places and themes. I love it when music projects or seiyuu artists take inspiration in classical literature while creating unique worlds and soundscapes in which I can lose myself. And Katari does that. It is a project with a lot of heart and meaning. So tell me, what do you think about this unique music concept of musical poetry? If you have checked Katari's music, which elements stand out for you? The poetry, the music, the whole atmosphere? Let me know in the comments. Once again, a big thank you to Kamio-san and Mamiya-san for the interview, as well as the special voice message. A thank you as well to Katari's management that was absolutely awesome since day one. And remember, leave your comments as complex or as simple as they may be, and you can be featured on upcoming episodes of Seiyuu Lounge. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss the Hand That Feeds HQ's weekly male seiyuu and music-related content, hit the subscribe button. I'll return next week with another episode of Seiyuu Lounge. Thank you for listening and see you guys around.